Hi, my name is Reverend Carole Kiamah, and this is Thoughts of a Shaken Pastor Season 5. In this season, we've been telling you amazing tales of men and women who have positively impacted the growth of faith in this country. And today's story is extremely special for me. It's a story of a man who gave his life to Jesus Christ when he was only 13 years old and faithfully walked with the Lord for more than 70 years. He has since gone to be with the Lord, but we're here to tell you his story. So I first got to hear about Reuben Odongo from his daughters. I work with Beatrice, one of his daughters. She's one of the pastoral staff here at the River of God Church. And I worked with his other daughter many years ago in my first job actually at the Commercial Bank of Africa. Reuben gave his life to Jesus Christ when he was still a very young man, and this was in colonial Kenya. And yes, Gen Z, there was a time we were a colony. There was a time when things were much worse than they are today. And this was not a good time for any African person to give their life to Jesus Christ, because at that time most people looked at the church as a tool that was being used by the colonial masters to subjugate us. But he felt the call of God upon his life. Some missionaries shared the good news with him, and at the tender age of 13 he chose to give his life to Jesus Christ. Of course, this made him a social pariah. His parents were not happy about it, his friends were not happy about it, and it cost him a lot. There were times when he actually feared about what was going to happen to him. Now, Reuben did not come from a well-to-do family, and he began work when he was a very young man. Later on in his life, he went on to meet the love of his life, whom he married, and together they faithfully served with the Pefa Church for more than 50 or so years. But hear his story from people who knew him better than I did.
We are here because Reuben, my dad, meant a lot to all of us. And I'm glad just listening to testimonies about what he meant to you. And it's hard to put words to the fact that he missed. I thought that we would miss him, and I know that you will miss him even more. He was born in February 1937-38 to Carole and Leah Odongo. He was one of 6 children, 5 boys and one lady who is here, who is a surviving member of the family. My dad lost his father early in life, and so he didn't go to school. My grandmother took him to Muhoroni to learn how to be a tailor. And my dad made suits like I don't see tailors do today. Done as suits, not just things that you threw together. And we had to work because he used to make the stuff at home. On the 20th of January, 1957, 20th of January happens to be my birthday too. We celebrate my parents' anniversary. And Dad was only 19. And we are finding young people getting married later and later. But at 19, my dad got married. And that year, George was born. My mom gave birth to 8 children. One that we never met was Ruth. Ruth was born right after George. Yeah. So there's George, there's Benta, there's Milka. Grace passed away in 2004. And then there's me. There's Elsa, who is not with us today, but who is with us here in spirit. And then there is Faith. My parents were married for 61 years. That's a blessing.
We lived here and he worked in Nairobi. So he'd come home every weekend. And every time he came home, the bus would stop on the road up here and we would run. The drivers used to know that the kids are there, so they would honk. And we would all run to the street to meet him. He got a house in Nairobi, so we started living in both places. We'd live in Nairobi, going to school, we got transfers, and then come back here during the holidays.
So in fact, though he was my brother-in-law, but being that he got married before I was born, and his firstborn was older than me, was like he's one of his children. And I can attribute my salvation to him, because when I was visiting with them in Nairobi in 1974, when I was in high school, we went for an overnight on the 31st of December 1974, and that is when I got saved. So I think my visit to them made me what I am with my salvation, because had I not visited him, maybe I would have known the Lord, though my father was a preacher and a pastor with the Voice of Salvation and Healing Church.
My dad has always been in ministry, even when he was in employment. So he would go to work in the morning, and the way when you're young, there are things you want to do and your parents are not there. My dad came home early every day. And it's not like maybe he wanted to watch TV and he wouldn't allow us to watch TV. He came home early every day. He was always there. The only 2 days a week he wasn't home early was Tuesdays and Fridays, because he had prayer meeting on Tuesday and Bible study on Friday. So like clockwork, you knew he'd be home.
He was involved in ministry from ever since I was born. I can't remember when he was not. And that changed our lives and affected our lives positively. We didn't even know we were sinners. We believed we were Christians. I didn't get saved till I was 15. It's when I realized that I've been brought up the right way, but I need Jesus for me. I can't go to heaven through my father's Jesus. And at age 15 is when I gave my life to the Lord.
One thing that I can say about him, he was a very strict man. He was a no-nonsense person. And I didn't like jokes. If it is business, it is business. And very strict administrator, even in his house. He brought his children under strict Christian values.
He talked to you straight when you did a mistake. He didn't whip you. He talked with you first, 2 or 3 times, before you get the cane on your back.
He was very strict, and especially to us young people. He wanted to be sure that we are walking right and living right, because he wished us well. I could not be married if it were not for Bishop Odongo. He was very, very concerned about the young men that were graduating from Bible school and the ladies that were in church, and they were seemingly looking like they were passing their time of getting married. And so he invited us for lunch, and because I was one of the little ones, I was invited to come and help to serve. My job was to serve these servants of God and the senior girls in the church. And while I was serving, I was just doing my business. I did not know that among them, there was one that was looking at me with a different eye. And after I finished serving the pastors, I got a letter. Those days there were no phones, no mobile phones. This gentleman had come from Uganda, and he didn't have any other way of finding me. And so he had to write a letter and send it through other people. And the rest is history. Today I'm married. And when I was celebrating my 50th wedding anniversary, it could not have been complete without Bishop Odongo being there.
Yeah, our life was around ministry, visiting people, visiting the sick, praying with the sick, and going on picnics.
He joined PEFA once he came to Nairobi. He came to Nairobi maybe in the early 60s. He had been working in, I think, Muhoroni. That's where he is. Because my dad wasn't able to go to school. I think he started school and then his father died. And so from a very young age, he started working very early. And my grandmother sent him to like a training to learn how to make clothes. So my dad was a tailor for the longest time. From when we were very young, even when he was very young, he went away from home, lived in, I think where he was studying, he was being taught how to make clothes was in Muhoroni. So he would go work, send money to his mom. And so by the time he came to Nairobi, he came to look for a job as a tailor. And so he worked for different places. At around that time, I think most of the shops that sold men's suits, because my dad made men's suits, were Asian-run shops. So he worked for some Asians, and then he got a job at the Hilton where he worked until his retirement, until he left employment. In Kisumu, he had been with a different church organization. Then when he came to Nairobi, I don't know how because for PEFA to begin, from the stories I have heard, PEFA began in their home in Maringo, in my parents' home in Maringo. The first missionaries that came, that started PEFA, would have house meetings in their home in Maringo. And then from there, they moved to a hall somewhere in Bahati. And then from there, they moved to Kikomba. They moved to a hall in town. I think Rahimtula Trust, I think. And then from there, they moved to the church in Kikomba, which was opened the year I was born. The opening ceremony happened when I was like 3 or 4 months.
When the missionaries first came, the PEFA missionaries, they held their prayer meetings in our house, in our living room. So from a very early childhood, I started seeing people praying. And as time went on, I got to understand what prayer was. But that initial prayer meeting and subsequent ones are the ones that gave birth to the All Nations Tuesday night prayer meetings to this day.
So because the church that we used to go to, PEFA, All Nations Gospel Church, at that particular time it was called All Nations Gospel Church, we had many members who were coming from Jericho, Lumumba and Jericho. And so the house fellowships in Eastlands were meeting in their home and in our home, and also in another home in Kaloleni.
Then the church was born, but there were 2 churches. There was a church over here, which was called Voice of Healing and Salvation, and the church in Nairobi was PEFA. So when we were in Nairobi, we were with PEFA. When we were here, so over the years, he was able to bring a PEFA church here locally.
When I grew up to be a young man, he was our youth patron. And we went to Sunday school to most of my cousins here, George, Benta, Milka. Just as people have said, that he was very strict, and he wanted us to grow in salvation. And so he made sure that we were really digging deep into the word. Quite often it could be in the street corners, together with late Mama Margaret, and most of other ladies and brothers who were there. So they really demonstrated that salvation is not a matter of just singing in the church, that we had to demonstrate the love of God, even as we could go outside and preach the gospel. There is something that he deposited in my life, valuing salvation.
As we used to call him, Reuben, taught us so many things because being born in church, he taught us the ways of God. And as we were in Sunday school, then teenagers, and then youth. Then I got married to Ambuka, Bishop Ambuka, the Deputy Bishop, Nairobi region, in the year 1993, because now we are 30 years in marriage. And so he taught us the ways of God when we were young. He taught us the ways of God when we got married.
Every time Bishop Reuben would tell me in the church that no one during the judgment day will queue behind him. So all of us, we are to fight our battles so that during that day, each and every one of us, you and I will give your account before the Lord. He set a good example for all of us to follow. Bishop Reuben would preach what he does. And every time he will tell me as a pastor, you can't tell the members to give tithe if you do not do it, or if you do not believe in it. Because the spirit in you will flow to the people.
Na mwaka wa 1991 Disemba hivi, yeye aliletwa kwetu kanisani, nami nikiwa wakati huo kama mzee wa kanisa la Kibera. Bwana Yesu asifiwe sana. Nilimpokea, aliletwa na mwadha mwenyewe. Bwana Yesu asifiwe sana. Nikamwambia mwadha, tumempokea. Kile kitu tunataka tusikizane hapa ni maendeleo. Yeye ni mfano wa ajabu. Bwana Yesu asifiwe sana. Kwa sababu pale kanisani, kile anafundisha ndicho anafanya. Akifundisha kutoa tithe, yeye kwa vitabu vya tithe yeye anaongoza. Akifundisha habari ya kutoa, yeye anaongoza katika mambo yote. Bwana Yesu asifiwe sana. Yeye alikuwa kiongozi ambaye anaongoza kwa mfano.
When he went to Kibera, first of all, it was in a slum. And the church, you couldn't even access the church by car. You couldn't drive to the church compound. You would have to leave the car somewhere and then walk. And even by then, when he first went to Kibera, he didn't even have a car, so he would just go and find your way. In fact, for the longest time, I couldn't visit because I didn't know where the church was. No one could even explain it to you that when you get off the bus here, you go. Yeah, it wasn't possible. And it was a small church. It was a church in an iron sheet church. And I guess one of the reasons why he felt he needed to work was even the fact that I think the offering was like in shillings, like coins. So, but he never, I don't remember him ever complaining about, I just know for a while he worked, trying to keep up. But I don't remember him ever complaining about not there being enough money. And I saw him go to Kibera, and I even remember the particular day when he was being sent off now to Kibera from Kikomba. And we were there for the service, and because by then, although I was in Pefa, but you were not in the same congregation, I was in a different congregation, so we just went for the ceremony. And we were still living in the same house, so he would go to Kibera and they'd come back, and they'd go during the week and they'd come back, and the church people would keep coming to our place. And maybe one of the reasons why Kibera was, I think both his heart and their hearts connected, because the people would be visiting all the time, and my parents would be visiting the congregation. And so the earlier years, there was a lot of that. They were always out, finding out where the congregation is, who they are, what's going on. And we saw the church move from that small iron sheet building to a big stone building. And by the time, we used to joke that if you went to Kibera for the service, you had better dress up because everyone would be more dressed up than you. Yeah. So, and even the people in the church would say that we may be living in the slum, but the slum is not in us. Because they say that when he went there, what he told them, that it doesn't, that just the fact that you live in the slum doesn't mean your life should look like you live in the slum. So they had that, and even I think at the funeral, some of them talked about it, that he made them realize that the slum did not define them. And so the church grew. He was there for almost 30 years, 20-something years. And we saw, and the church became big. They opened maybe 4 or 5 other branches in different parts of the city in that side of town. And I like the fact that even today, yesterday when I was home, I got a call from one of the pastors that was one of the church plants from Kibera, and he called to ask how I was doing. And he's a man that we look up to, because he's almost like my dad's age. But it's interesting when during the funeral, he considers himself as my brother, while for us we considered him an older. But he actually called yesterday just to find out how I was doing. So there has been that fact that relationships grew, so that even people that we don't see daily, but they have taken us as part of their lives, and they have also been part of our lives.
Mzee was a man that we admire living with, and was a man who feared God. Was a man who had a heart for those who feared God. If you are not a man of God, when you fear God, will not be your friend. He had boundaries. Say, these are my boundaries. He couldn't go beyond those boundaries because of his salvation. And there are very long testimony, the people with whom they got saved, how they walked with the Lord, and those are the things that he could talk. He didn't have any other story to tell except salvation and how God blesses those who work for him. And for sure, God worked for him, and God blessed him and left behind a very wonderful family.
Every house we have lived in, before when building this, he always had room for people. People who were in Nairobi who didn't have anywhere to go, he would bring them home. He'd tell us, guys, you got to move, organize your room. And he raised other families in our house till they were standing on their own feet. Unajua zile nyumba za Jericho, hiyo room ya ndani, he used to move out of that room na achukue hii section nyingine, na sisi tulala hapo kwa living room, na hiyo room ya ndani anapatia family nzima for a month or 2 months. Siku hizo kulikuwa kugumu. It was like immediately after independence. We were the first people to be given houses in Jericho, 1962. It was freshly built, and so it was like, Brother Reuben has got a big house. But he helped people who are coming to Nairobi. We didn't understand why we were kids, but we got to make many, many friends through that. And once they get a job and they're on their feet, he helps them get a house. And that has remained with me. Even today, I'm in America, but I still have people coming to my house. Immigrants who are coming from Kenya, or people coming to school, they still come to my house and stay with me till they get their own place.
Anytime there was a gathering and you looked at Bishop Reuben's plate, you were challenged, because he always picked what he was going to eat very, very carefully. And as a result, all of us can attest to the fact that he was always very fit. The other thing I remember is that he was always very, very generous. The times that we visited him, he went out of his way, especially the last time we visited him last year as women leaders. He went out of his way to really, give us a feast. It was such a challenge to me. And so the legacy he has left is something we will never forget. He has left a mark in my life as a man who loved and committed himself to serving the Lord, and he enjoyed, could see that it was emanating from his heart. And if there is anything I desire, is to love and serve the Lord the way Mzee Reuben did.
He told us that when he came from Kisumu coming to Nairobi, he came with 4 things. He came with a shirt, a sheet, pair of shoe, and what else did he say? And a trouser. He came with absolutely nothing to the city. And because he had God with him, he followed the ways of God, that whatever you plant, so shall you reap. So he told us that in his poverty, he learned how to give to God. He learned how to give to the work of God. He learned how to support the work of the ministry. And therefore, that is the message that he preached in our church. We had absolutely nothing. But from that message, when he walked out of that compound, God started just doing miracles amongst the few people that were in that church at that particular time.
One thing that Bishop, we call him Bishop despite being our grandfather because of how instrumental he's been to us in our family, in our walk of faith. He's really encouraged us to align our way with Christ, and we really appreciate that for him. One fond memory I have of him is the bottled waters that pastors sell. He was so much against that, and he could always preach and say, don't believe in preachers who sell for you handkerchiefs and bottled water or oil. If you want to reach God, you can reach God on your own. You don't have to buy the vitambas or buy the oil to be able to get the anointing of God. He says you can talk to God on your own. So it has made me nowadays be very cautious of what preachers say. It makes me weigh and even ask myself, what spirit do they have behind them? So I think that is one thing I'll remember him with.
No yalo maler kabisa. Ne en ng'ama puonjo ji wach Nyasaye maonge wach moro amora. Kendo ne en bishop nomuol kabisa. To nopuonjo nyithi Nyasaye kanobiro. To nowacho ne nyithi Nyasaye ni onego bed ni ji lokore, we richo.
Weche ariyo manyiso unadwa time nende jaduong'. Jaduong' ogola e tabu moro ne ni dalawa, wan ga mon ariyo. Jaduong' ni ng'ama owar. Mon nochokore turi dalana. Jaduong' nokelo kwe dala kanyo kaka ng'ama owar. Kama ne lweny sware mane ji gore. Nokele kwe, ma kweno nobet nyaka chil sama wuoye koduni. Omiyo sama koro onge ni jowadwa, wawe mana ne Nyasaye nikech nyo dong' achiel. Nyo makowa kaka mond yawuote. Nye wan e diere ka endi jaduong' noherowa, oonge kod weche mang'eny. Kata kowinjo ni nyathi moro timo gini gi gini to gino donje litne. Jaduong' ni mwayudo gi warruok e dier dala kamolo kata kwerewa kata dewa. Ene mwayude gi warruok maduong' e dier dala ka. Emomiyo wan bende nwaluwo bang'e kwachomo warruokno tir. Omiyo Nyasaye oseritowa, kata wakalo matek kata wakalo mayot, to ritowa nikech jaduong'ni.
I learned a lot. I learned to share, to love, to pray, to put God first, to forgive, and be my family's keeper, take care of the people around me just the same way he's taken care of us for the past years.
After he retired now from being a pastor, and he went back home, the government was doing roads, and the church that he had built in Kibera was demolished. And at first, we were concerned because he had poured his life into the church, and so you're wondering, so how will he feel that, he's like it was almost like his legacy. But when he was told that the church was demolished, he said that they demolished a building, they did not demolish the church. So in fact, when they found a new piece of land to build the new church, he came for when they were raising the funds to build the church. And because when he heard the church was demolished, he knew that the people were discouraged. And so the pastor called him and he came to Nairobi and he met with them and told them that they demolished the building, they did not demolish the church. And so just to be able to, and when I think of stuff like that, because sometimes we put a lot of weight in things that are temporal. But I think he had his eye on something that was eternal. So and you could see the excitement of the congregation even after they had mourned their loss. They moved ahead with hope that it wasn't the end. Yeah, because for people in the slum to have given money to build a good building and then to lose it, but now they've raised the money again and they've built a new building. So God has been faithful.
He knew how to choose his words when he's talking to people. He was a man of wisdom. You would never quote Bishop Reuben anywhere that he said something about anybody. Reuben will just come direct to you and tell you what has happened and how he wants you to walk from there. And so he was a man of words of wisdom, and therefore I will remember him with that.
For certain, is a man who feared God, and he was ready to confront anybody when he saw things were not going right, even his boss, because he knew if it's either it is right or not right. There was nothing in between. And if you are wrong, he'll just tell you this is not right.
Bishop has gone, but we shall remember him. Because in the ministry as PEFA, he has raised young people who nobody believed in. And right now, some of them are overseers in our PEFA churches, Kenya.
I know I look like my dad, that's obvious. Yeah. But I didn't know how much else I look or I maybe sound like my dad. So maybe I'll try to tone it down. Because maybe I got it from my dad. Kama kitu ni mbaya ni mbaya. And I love the word of God. And so it's a sacred thing for me. And I think it was a sacred thing for my dad too. And so if you are going to be ministers of the gospel, then let's be true to the word of God. Let's honor the word of God. Let's give it the respect that it deserves. And that's what my dad taught me.
And my desire and my prayer that the generation that has come from Bishop Reuben Odongo will love the God of Reuben. That is my cry and my desire, George, that your children and your children's children will love the God that he loved so much and he served all his lifetime. May you never forget the values, the teachings that he instilled in your lives as he raised you with little, but he gave you all that he had.
So he put both spirituality and God's creation in our hearts in such a way that today I still love nature. I love God. I love creation. I still climb mountains. I've climbed Mount Kenya several times to the top. And I've taken young people up Mount Kenya several times. I would like to go climb Mount Kilimanjaro at some point. I wanted to go with him, but God has called him. And so, but when I come back next year, I'm definitely going to climb Mount Kilimanjaro.
My father loved songs. He loved to sing. He loved songs about heaven. He loved songs about he's got a mansion somewhere over the hilltop in that bright land where he'll never grow old. He loved music. So I guess when I think about him, even now when I listen to songs or to particular songs, then I find myself thinking about him because of the songs that he loved to sing.
There came a time in Reuben's life when he started to struggle with his health. He had become more advanced in years, but his love and his zeal for the gospel remained the same. And so this afternoon, Pastor Tony and I, together with Beatrice, decided to travel all the way to Kisumu so that we could spend some time with him. And I still remember some of the things that he shared with us. One of his greatest concern was what was happening to the gospel of Jesus Christ. The people who had started off so well with him, whom they had served with as young people passionately for the kingdom, were not finishing the race well. And I remember him looking at Bishop Kiamah and I and telling us, you know what, at the end of life, the only thing that truly matters is to love Jesus deeply and to love Jesus truthfully or honestly, you know, to be sold out to the gospel, not just because of what we can get, but because of what we can give. And I think this exemplified his life, that he did not accumulate a lot of wealth towards his end. He was comfortable, but it was clear that he had not served for gain, that he was serving because he loved the Lord, that he was serving because he believed in this gospel, and that he had seen what the Lord had done with his life. And this gave him immense pleasure. And I remember asking him, what do you want to be remembered for? What is the legacy that you would want to leave behind? And he kept saying that one of the things that he thanks God for is opportunity to impact the lives of men who ended up becoming generals, some of whom didn't finish as well as he would have wanted to, and some of whom went on to explode. And we're talking about the likes of Carole, Tumising, Bishop Masinde, and others that have also impacted the growth of faith in this country. But the thing that stays with me about Bishop Odongo is that even towards the end, the same passion he had exemplified from the time he gave his life to Jesus Christ, as he raised his children, as he served first as a pastor and then as a bishop and eventually as an advisor to upcoming bishops, is that he had not lost that passion and that zeal and that love for Jesus Christ through the years. That yes, he went through some very difficult moments. Yes, there were times that he was deeply disappointed by what was happening with the Church of Jesus Christ, but he did not lose sight of the fact that the church remains or belongs to Jesus, and that the Church of Jesus Christ remains undefeatable. Because you see, the church is not an organization. The church is not a building. The church are men and women who are totally sold out to this gospel of our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. And he left a legacy, not just with his children, but with some of us who are following behind. And my prayer, even as we come to the close of this show, is that all of us will take time to ponder about what is the impact we want to leave. What will people say about us when we have gone, and about our commitment to this faith that for which God paid such a dear price to. And I guess that is my challenge for each one of you. Think through, how are you living your life? What are you doing? How are you impacting society, so that when you leave, somebody can be left behind to say, I will follow Christ as I have watched so-and-so follow Jesus. So thank you, Reuben. Thank you, the Odongo family, for sharing this amazing journey with us. God bless you and see you next week. Bye.